Today's lecture covers Coulomb's law, electric field, principle of superposition, Gauss's law for electrostatics, and electric lines of force. This is a diagrammatic representation of Coulomb's law of forces. All of electrostatics stems from the quantitative statement of Coulomb's law, which concerns the force acting between charged bodies at rest with respect to each other. Coulomb established that the force acting between two small charged bodies separated by a distance large compared to their dimensions depends on the following factors. What is interesting is that this was established by Coulomb experimentally in the 18th century. Continuing from the previous slide, the force experienced by two charged bodies varies directly as the magnitude of each charge. It varies inversely as the square of the distance between them. It is directed along the line joining the charges. It is attractive if the bodies are oppositely charged, and it is repulsive if the bodies have the same type of charge. Coulomb's law and the principle of superposition form the foundation of electrostatics. On the right hand side, we can see a picture of Charles Coulomb. This diagram shows a collection of charges, and we will be using this to state the principle of superposition. According to the principle of superposition, the interaction between any two charges is completely unaffected by the presence of the others. If we consider a collection of charges Q1, Q2, Q3 and so on, and we want to determine the force on a test charge Q, we compute the force acting independently for each charge, neglecting the remaining charges. Finally, we take a vector sum of all these individual forces, which is given by F is equal to F1, F2 and so on till Fn. Please remember that superposition cannot be assumed. It is an experimental fact. What is an electric field, or what is a field? Our tactile experience of electricity is a tingling sensation we feel when a small current flows through our body. The electric field strength, or simply electric field, due to a charge is defined as the force exerted on a positive charge at a particular point. This is a photograph taken from the internet representing an electric field, rather an electrical storm. The lightning is a massive discharge of electrons which are gathered due to the mutual rubbing around of the clouds, and once when this charge is discharged suddenly to the ground, it gives rise to the phenomena of lightning. The electric field is equal to the force upon the test charge. So the unit of electric field is Newton per Coulomb or volt per meter. If we have several point charges Q1, Q2, Q3 and so on at distances R1, R2 and R3, then the total force on Q is given by F is equal to F1 plus F2 plus Fn so on, which is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught open brackets Q1Q upon R1 square unit vector R1 and so on. But F is equal to QE. So if we take the capital Q outside the parenthesis in the previous expression, we can write this as within the brackets Q1 upon R1 square unit vector R1 and so on, where the electric field E will become 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught summation QI Ri unit vector upon Ri square. What we expressed mathematically in the previous slide is visible graphically over here. On the XYZ space, we can see a conglomeration of charges represented by Qi. P is the point at which the field is being determined, and this vector diagram indicates how we calculate the resultant field at P due to the collection of charges Qi. The concept of electric field was introduced by Michael Faraday. Faraday developed a graphical representation in which he imagined the space around an electric charge to be filled with the lines of force. It is a very convenient way to visualize the electric field. The right-hand side shows a photograph of Michael Faraday. This is a photograph taken from the internet. You can see the electric lines of force from a positive charge diverging out. So resultantly, the divergence of E at this point is going to be positive. The electric lines of force converge towards a negative charge, and resultantly the divergence at this point will be negative. The third photograph is just of a neutral point. The electric field starts on a positive charge ends on a negative charge. The magnitude of the electric field at any point is proportional to the number of field lines per unit area of cross-section perpendicular to the lines. The tangent to the electric field line passing through any point in space gives the direction of the electric field at that point. This diagram shows the electric lines of force for three situations. The top diagram is the electric field lines for a uniform field. The lines are all equally spaced and the electric field points in one direction. The second diagram shows the electric field lines for a non-uniform field. The third diagram shows an isolated positive point charge or a positively charged uniform sphere, and as we can see, the electric lines of force diverge out. The right hand side shows a photograph of Carl Gauss. We now prove Gauss's law for electrostatics. Gauss's law states the total flux of the electric field E over any closed surface is equal to the total charge enclosed by the surface divided by epsilon naught. The epsilon naught occurs because we are working in SI units. So mathematically we can write down flux phi E is equal to closed integral E dot ds, which is equal to Q upon epsilon naught. This law relates the flux through any closed surface and the net charge enclosed within the surface given by Q here. This closed hypothetical surface is also known as Gaussian surface. The total flux of E through the closed surface S depends only on the value of the net charge inside the surface and not on the location of the charges. The charges outside the surface will not contribute to phi E. The electric flux phi E is a measure of the number of lines passing through S. The field strength is proportional to the density of the field lines, that is, the number of lines per unit area. Hence, E dot ds is proportional to the density of field lines, that is, number of lines per unit area, or the number of lines passing through an infinitesimal area, ds. Prove Gauss law of electrostatics. For a charge inside a closed surface, consider a single point charge plus q located at a point O inside a closed surface S. Now let ds be a small area of element at a distance r from q. So E is given by 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q upon r square unit vector r. Continuing with the proof, the flux through the area ds is given by d phi E equal to E dot ds, or we can write this as E ds cos theta. Substituting the expression for E, which is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q upon r square, we get 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q upon r square ds cos theta. But we know very well that ds cos theta simply represents the element of solid angle which is subtended by the area ds at the point O. So d phi E can be written as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught q d omega. The total flux through the entire closed surface S is then given by phi E equal to integral d phi E, which is equal to q upon 4 pi epsilon naught integral d omega. Now, for the entire closed surface, the value of integral d omega is simply 4 pi. So the resultant expression for phi is equal to q upon 4 pi epsilon naught 4 pi. Since the total solid angle subtended by S at O is 4 pi, thus phi is equal to q upon epsilon naught. Gauss's law holds for a collection of charges enclosed by a surface also. From the principle of superposition, the electric field due to a number of charges is the vector sum of the individual fields. So phi is equal to integral E dot ds, which is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught summation of qi, which is equal to q upon epsilon naught, where q represents the total charge inside the surface. Now supposing q lies outside a closed surface, then the elementary cone of the solid angle cuts the surface at 2 points. If we try to sum the contributions from the solid angle subtended by q, we find that each pair of the areas have normals pointing in opposite directions. A clearer view of the diagram is visible over here. As you can see, q is lying outside, and if we draw the line, then it cuts the surface at 2 points. The direction of the electric field is the same, pointing towards the right, but the outward drawn normal on the left hand side points towards the left and on the right hand side points towards the right. For a charge lying inside a surface, we would have two cones, one towards the right and one towards the left. But what we need to understand is that in both these cases, the electric field is pointing in the same direction as the outward drawn normal. So the contributions will not mutually cancel but mutually add up. The same thing, the electric field points in the same direction, hence such contributions will mutually cancel and the net flux out of such an area would be 0. Hence integral E dot ds will be q upon epsilon naught if q lies inside the surface and will be 0 if q lies outside. For a discrete set of charges, q is represented by summation over I, qi. For a continuous charge density, it is represented by rho r. So integral E dot ds will be equal to 1 upon epsilon naught integral rho r dv, where v is enclosed by S. This is one of the basic equations of electrostatics, and you can note that it depends on the inverse square law of forces between charges, the central nature of force, the principle of linear superposition. We can now express Gauss' law for electrostatics in the differential form. Using the Gauss divergence theorem, the electric flux of the electric field can be written as integral E dot ds equal to divergence of E dv, where S encloses V. So now by Gauss's theorem of electrostatics, let the next slide come up. We have integral E dot ds equal to q upon epsilon naught. So if we define the charge per unit volume as rho, then the total charge enclosed by S enclosed by V would be q is equal to integral rho dv. So q upon epsilon naught is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught integral rho dv. Thus integral divergence of E dv is equal to 1 upon epsilon naught integral rho dv. But since S and V are arbitrary, we can compress these integrals and just extract the expression as divergence of E equal to rho upon epsilon naught. So the divergence of the electric field at any point is the volume charge density at that point divided by epsilon naught. It is very important to note that Gauss' law of electrostatics in the differential form also expresses first of the Maxwell's equations, and it is based upon Coulomb's law of forces.